Oh, congratulations! You finally stumbled upon the video you should have watched before you turned your life into a romantic circus where you are, proudly, the main clown. Let's cut the crap. No woman on earth is worth your self-respect, though it looks like yours was sold in a bargain bin for 2 cents and a chewed piece of gum. If you think that's harsh, it's probably because you're already paying a heavy subscription fee just for the privilege of having someone by your side who pretends to tolerate you. There are guys out there swallowing disrespect, lies, and humiliation like it's dessert, all out of a hysterical fear of spending a Saturday night alone with their own insignificance. And the best part? They look in the mirror, puff out their chest, and call that misery love. Love? Please. That's just cowardice wearing expensive cologne to cover up the smell of desperation. And look at you. So mature, right? Oh, look how patient I am. Look how understanding I am. What a nice coat of paint on a spineless wimp. Relax, this isn't a tutorial on how to become a bitter incel or declare war on women. It's just a wake-up slap to see if you'll snap out of it and realize where affection ends and your social and emotional suicide begins. Look at you, changing your whole routine, swallowing insults, canceling plans, and letting yourself be treated like a doormat, all so that at the end of the night you can sigh in relief and think, at least she didn't leave me. Wow, what an epic win, champion. The person is standing right next to you while you fade into a ghost, a cheap outline of a man. The real problem was never her disrespecting you. The problem was you noticing it and deciding it was a great idea to stay put and ask for seconds. You taught her the exact price of your presence, a cheap bargain. And guess what? Nobody pays top dollar for stuff in the clearance aisle. But of course, before you keep romanticizing your own ruin, let's use the 2 brain cells you have left that haven't melted from emotional codependency. This video didn't pop up on your screen through divine intervention or because the universe loves you. It's here because someone with a bit more cognitive capacity than you had the guts to hit like, comment, and subscribe. It wasn't a miracle, it was the algorithm. And the algorithm isn't your mom to cuddle you without asking for anything in return. It's a machine, and it needs to be fed. So if you're sitting there frozen, sucking up this content for free like the world owes you a favor, congratulations on the astronomical audacity. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment pretending you've evolved just to keep up appearances. Now, wipe your tears, fix your posture, and let's get right into this reality check. Number 1, never accept disrespect just to avoid being alone. There comes a moment when a man needs to stop asking, "How do I make her stay?" and start asking, "Why am I putting up with this?" That single question changes everything. Because repeated disrespect isn't an accident, it's a pattern. A disagreement, a fight, a human mistake, that's one thing. Living in a relationship where you're constantly put down, ignored, humiliated, baited, or treated like a backup option while you just stand there, smiling awkwardly and saying everything's fine, that's entirely different. It's not fine. And you know it. The problem is that admitting it means making a decision. And decisions take guts. It's much more comfortable to make excuses. She's just going through a phase. That's just how she is. If I talk to her the right way, she'll change. Sure, and maybe tomorrow cats will start paying income tax. Meanwhile, you keep trading your peace of mind for a few hours of company. Here's the trap. Every single time you accept something that violates your boundaries without any real consequences, you teach her, and more importantly, yourself, that your dignity is up for negotiation. And negotiated dignity turns into discounted dignity. After a while, you don't even know what you should be demanding anymore. You start by accepting a sarcastic jab, then a low blow, then a lie, then total disregard. Before you know it, you're defending a relationship that needs to be defended against reality itself. And here's the part that hurts. Nobody is obligated to respect boundaries that you don't enforce yourself. Talk is cheap. I won't accept this. Sounds great. Sounds like a decisive man. But real authority isn't in the sentence. It's in your behavior right after it. If someone crosses your line, you don't need to scream, threaten, or throw a dramatic fit. You observe. You communicate. And if the pattern continues, you walk away. No spectacle. No revenge. None of that petty childish drama of blocking, unblocking, posting passive-aggressive quotes, and checking who viewed your story. That's not strength. That's needy desperation disguised as a strategy. An emotionally strong man doesn't need to punish anyone to set a boundary. He simply revokes access where respect is missing. And that's where most guys get lost. They confuse love with infinite tolerance. Loving someone doesn't mean accepting any garbage behavior just to stop them from leaving. Sometimes the highest form of self-respect is accepting that someone might choose to walk out of your life. Because if you have to throw away your dignity to stop a breakup, that person is already costing you way too much. When you finally get that, you realize being alone for a while is far less painful than spending years accompanied by someone while feeling completely abandoned by yourself. But there's an even quieter trap. You might learn not to take disrespect, yet still make another fatal mistake, reshaping your entire personality just so you never get dumped. Which brings us to the next rule. Number 2, never abandon who you are to please a woman. Look at this closely, because this mistake usually happens under the radar. A guy doesn't realize he's losing himself. He thinks he's just showing interest. It starts small, changing a habit here, a preference there. He stops hanging out with his boys because she doesn't like them, gives up on his goals because she complains he's busy, changes the way he dresses, changes his schedule, changes his opinions. He even starts agreeing with things he used to think were ridiculous before she came along. And he calls all of this making it work. No, man. Making it work is building something together. Erasing your own identity to avoid conflict is something else entirely. There's a massive difference between evolving under someone's positive influence and morphing into a doormat just to be accepted. The first is growth. The second is self-abandonment. A man who has to play a character to keep a woman interested entered the relationship at a loss from day one, because now he has to sustain a lie every single day. And emotional masking is exhausting. You end up analyzing every word, every reaction, every text, trying to figure out which version of you gets her stamp of approval. Congratulations, you're not in a relationship. You're auditioning for a job you should have never had to apply for. The harder you try to please, the more you lose the exact thing that made your presence attractive in the first place: authenticity. Nobody truly respects a guy who can't stand his ground. There might be attraction, attachment, or habit, but respect, that's a different story. And here's the cold truth. If you have to ditch your goals to prove you love her, you aren't proving love. You're proving codependency. A man can listen to the woman he loves. He should listen. He can change, and should change when he realizes he's wrong. But there's a line between taking legitimate feedback and turning her approval into your moral compass. The moment her mood dictates your self-worth, you've handed her the steering wheel. If she's happy, you're happy. If she's distant, you panic. If she approves, you feel like a man. If she disapproves, you start questioning your value. That's not connection, that's emotional outsourcing. Outsourcing your identity usually ends in an ironic twist. You manage to keep the woman, but you lose the man she fell for in the beginning. You spent so much time trying to keep her from losing interest that you became the exact kind of guy who can no longer respect himself. So write this down. A healthy relationship adds to your life. It doesn't replace it. You can love a woman deeply and still keep your goals, your friends, your discipline, your principles, and your own path. In fact, That's the only way two adults can walk side by side without one having to drag the other like dead weight. Once you master this, only one last trap remains, the sneakiest one of all. Because after learning not to tolerate disrespect and not to abandon who you are, you'll be tempted to use this knowledge to control the other person. And that's where a lot of guys confuse self-control with manipulation. Number 3. Never manipulate a woman to get what you want. Now we've hit the spot where many guys stumble and still call the fall a master strategy. He learns about silence, detachment, self-control, boundaries, and instead of using them to build strength, he uses them to play emotional puppeteer, ghosting on purpose, manufacturing jealousy, giving cold replies just to trigger her anxiety, making her doubt her self-worth so he can swoop in like the prize. Genius, right? A true emperor, ruling over a kingdom of insecurity. Get this straight. Triggering a reaction isn't the same as earning respect. You can make someone chase you out of fear, confusion, or insecurity. Sure, it works for a minute. Poison works fast too. The problem is what's left behind. Any relationship built on anxiety requires higher and higher doses of drama to stay alive. Today you take 2 hours to reply. Tomorrow you have to vanish for a day. Next you have to be seen with someone else, play mind games, pull away. Boom. You're no longer a man, you're a full-time employee in your own circus. Here's the kick. Manipulation is just needy dependence in disguise. Yes, dependence. If you have to control how she feels just to feel secure yourself, you're the one who's trapped. You're hooked on her reaction, hooked on her jealousy, hooked on her texts, hooked on knowing you can still pull her strings. What kind of power is that if it needs to be validated by every phone notification? Real power doesn't need an audience. An emotionally grounded man doesn't stir up chaos to test interest, he observes interest. He doesn't play the jealousy card to measure his value, he knows his value. He doesn't go ghost to punish her, he steps back when it's genuinely time to walk away. It sounds less like a movie script, I know. It doesn't give you that petty, childish high of imagining someone suffering because you didn't text back good night. What a tragedy. But maturity has that inconvenient flaw. It dismantles the mind games that felt smart when you were still emotionally starved. Pay attention, because here lies the line between detachment and cruelty. Detachment means being able to move on with your life even if she doesn't choose you. Cruelty is trying to destroy her peace of mind just to make sure she keeps thinking about you. One is strength, the other is ego wearing cold-hearted makeup. The irony is that manipulative guys think they're deeply rational, calculating reply times, presence, absence, posts, views, looking like a stock trader tracking emotional volatility. They just forgot to actually live. While trying to consume her thoughts, she's occupying his brain all day long. Catch the joke? He calls control the very thing that keeps him completely controlled. Remember this, if you have to tear down a woman's emotional security to feel bigger, you haven't grown. You just found someone to stand over. A strong man doesn't need that. He speaks clearly when necessary, walks away when necessary, stays when it makes sense, leaves when respect is gone. No psychological games, no cheap tests, no ghosting circus just to see if she misses him. At the end of the day, a truly stoic man doesn't control any woman. He controls his own anxiety, his own ego, and his desperate need to win every interaction. When you master that, you see the invisible rule that was hiding behind all three from the start. Your dignity only becomes currency when you decide to put it up for sale. The invisible rule: never bargain with your dignity. In the end, all three rules point to the same foundation: dignity. You lose dignity when you take disrespect out of fear of being alone. You lose dignity when you ditch your identity for approval. And you lose dignity when you manipulate someone because you can't handle the thought of not being chosen. It sounds contradictory, but it isn't. In every single case, it's the exact same guy behind the curtain, someone terrified of loss. One over-accommodates, one over-adapts, one over-controls. 3 different masks for the exact same insecurity. This is where people get defensive because it's much easier to blame women, the algorithm, the culture, astrology, or the cost of living than it is to look in the mirror and admit, I was scared of being abandoned. Boom. There's the wound. Now you can fix it without the theatrical drama. When a man realizes he can survive a loss, his entire demeanor shifts. He stops begging people to stay, stops selling his principles at a discount, stops accepting crumbs just because they come wrapped in occasional affection. And he stops trying to trap people using anxiety, guilt, or mind games. He finally gets that desire isn't a long-term contract. You can want a woman badly and still say no. You can love someone and walk away. You can miss someone and refuse to go back to a place that wrecked your peace. That's not being cold. That's having structure. Being cold is feeling nothing. Having structure is feeling everything and still making the right call with a clear head. That kind of man makes people uncomfortable because he can't be bought. Attention won't buy him. Sex won't buy him. Fear of being alone won't buy him. Emotional blackmail won't buy him. He might hurt. Sure, a man with dignity isn't a robot. He just doesn't turn pain into a green light to humiliate himself. That's the invisible rule. Never put your dignity on the table as a bargaining chip. The second you do, anyone can start negotiating your price. And they always start low. A compromise here, a humiliation there. Let it go. I don't want to fight. Next thing you know, you're paying emotional rent to live in a relationship where you don't even feel at home. Burn this into your mind before we wrap up. You can lose a woman and stay whole. What you cannot do is keep her while picking up the shattered pieces of yourself every night. No company is worth the absence of your own self-respect. There's no mystery here. There's only a price tag. Every choice charges a fee. Accepting disrespect costs your self-esteem. Abandoning who you are costs your identity. Manipulating people costs your peace. A guy who spends too long paying those bills ends up emotionally bankrupt, still flexing like he's tough because he learned 6 catchy phrases about being cold on the internet. Cute. They just forgot to tell him that real composure isn't measured by how well you ignore a woman. It's measured by how well you remain yourself when there's a real chance of losing her. Anyone can look steady when they're in control. Let's see what happens when she pulls away, when she says no, when she leaves. When your ego starts throwing a pathetic tantrum in your head, text her, explain yourself, do something, act like you don't care. That is the exact moment the real you shows up. Hi, Shos. Maybe the most uncomfortable truth in this video is this. You don't need to win every relationship. You don't need to make every woman regret losing you. You don't need to be unforgettable. Sometimes you just need to walk away whole. That might sound like a small win to someone who still measures his worth by female validation. To a man who has grown up, it's everything. Never accept disrespect just to have company. Never destroy your identity trying to buy approval. And never turn someone else's emotions into a toy to feed your ego. That isn't being nice. That's having standards. It's being able to look at someone you want and still say, I want you, but I don't need to lose myself to have you. That's the line most guys never reach. Desiring without kneeling, loving without losing yourself, losing without breaking, and walking away without having to burn the house down just to prove you were there. Weak men want to come out on top. Insecure men want to leave trauma behind. Grounded men want to leave with a clean conscience and a straight spine. Everything else is just noise. If there's one sentence to take away from this, it's this: my dignity is not up for negotiation. Doesn't matter the face, doesn't matter the body, doesn't matter how many butterflies were in your stomach. Butterflies die, principles stay. The day you truly understand this, no woman becomes the center of your universe. She can be part of your life, she can be important, she can be loved, but she will never own your worth again. And right there is where something far rarer than attraction begins: self-respect.